Hey guys, welcome back to the Workbench and World of Modeling. Dan here, and I'm going to be showing you guys some of the projects that I've been working on and getting you guys up to date with where I'm at with stuff. I've been working on lots of hoppers, a couple things here and there, lots of different models of covered hoppers this time. Not just the same like 4750s that I've been doing, though I still do have some 4750s I want to show in this video, mainly these two, and I do have some others that I want to work on when time allows, but really, I've been working on making a fleet of these DJTX cars. These are the ones I got custom decals made for. There's a couple industries here in Ohio that take these cars, and then they also can be seen in Michigan, in Indiana, out west, all over the place. So I wanted to have a couple of these. So I did another plain gray one. This was an Intermountain 4750, and I'll show this one to kick the video off. This is again another DJTX Nucor car. So they have the custom decals with the neat logos there. Those were done by Circuit City Graphics, and this one is 475770. It's really sloppily stenciled on there, just like the prototype cars usually are. I tried to do a sponge weathering technique to simulate the crusty looking rust buildup on this one. It was an experiment, but I used oil paint to apply that, and I think it came out okay. It's not 100% perfect, but it gives you the textured look that I was trying to go for. So that worked out in the end, but it could be better. Definitely one I'm going to do a little bit more trial and error with. So anyways, I got some rust pitting and scratching and things like that. That's all the very common wear. I mean, it's pretty much standard on these older cars because these things have been so beat up. So again, you got the patchwork, I added striping, you got all the scratching down the side, and it's just basically where any kind of equipment in an elevator or any kind of servicing platform gets sideswiped. Even in rail yards, these things get sideswiped all the time, so you have a lot of these gouges down the side of the car. On the roof, it's very rusted. I did some grain spillage because all my DJTX cars are grain hoppers. Unlike the AEX cars that haul salt, these are grain cars. I replaced the top hatch with tangent hatches because they're pretty nice. They're a little bit more detailed, and they're the smooth style. So they work for these cars pretty well. So I got the grain spillage, and that's actually just powdered ginger, and I just glue it down with some Elmer's white glue, and then I dull coat over it to seal all the rest of it in place. And as you can see, it's pretty well in place, and it does a really good job simulating spilled grain. So there's that one side, and then here's the opposite side, which is slightly heavier. Slight variation in patchwork, slight variation in the rust. Here you can see the logo start to chip away. Again, I like to add a lot of dimensions into my weathering, and beat up safety striping, beat up logos, chipping, peeling graphics, and things like that are things I like to focus on, and I think that's what makes my cars kind of signature. I really like to focus on the different elements, and beat logos, for example, crappy looking stencil patch jobs and things like that, overspray patches, rust spots, things like that. They're all key elements to any piece of rolling stock. If you're doing boats, cars, I keep saying it over and over again, these little details are what make your models shine out, I'm telling you. So there's that one, and it's a pretty cool car. That's finished up. And this one here is a slightly different DJTX car. This one is one of the yellow cars. I don't have too many of these, but I found a prototype photo of a similar one, so I patched it up again with a different style of stencil lettering, and I weathered the sides with some washes. I faded it down quite a bit. The top is completely rusted and rotted away using various levels of acrylic and then oil work blended together. Again, I got a new tangent hatch weathered up. Added the grain spillage, everything like that. And the real work was again on the sides, just modeling all the individual little rust pits and scratches, doing one layer after the other, building it up slowly, doing the patchwork, adding your decals, doing the really neat Chicago Northwestern burnout there. I think it's really cool because you can actually still see the imprint of the graphic through it, which is pretty cool. It's got a little bit of graffiti, but again, really the intention all went into the rust. You can see it's extended onto the bays. You got a lot of pitting on the bays where the paint's peeling away, scratching and gouging and everything like that. Pretty common. Nicely grimed up trucks. At the ends have the kick-up spray, the patchwork. You guys can see all that splatter. You all should be pretty familiar with this kind of thing by now. It's pretty much a signature thing, again, on pretty much all of my models. When you're doing these covered hoppers, really focus on the ends, make sure they're nice and grimy. And then here's the opposite side. Slightly different. But again, pretty much the same process for this side. But it's very realistic because you can see all the multi-layered rust effects, the patch effects, and everything like that. And it's really cool. I really like this one. This is one of my favorites. I guess all of them are technically my favorites. I say that a lot, but I really do. I put so much effort into these things where they're not done until I'm in love with the model afterwards, and I definitely think I got one there. So the bass came out really good again. You got the kick-up line there. So there's the 24750s, and those are the last two Intermountain cars I completed that were 4750s. I'm not going to try to go and get too crazy with these guys. These are 4780s, and these are by Walthers. Exactrial also makes these, I believe, but I chose to do the Walthers cars, and I did 3 variations of them. They're all, 2 of them are gray repaints. They've been custom patched and weathered to match prototype photos of exact cars. So you got 47 and 5689 with a really unique rust pattern on the top. You got the graffiti, unique patchwork. Very chunky looking graffiti, not graffiti, but rust work. Some rust pitting and scratching. You got the beat up logo, cool patchwork again, and then all of the unique weathering on the roof. These have the see-through walkways too, which is pretty cool. But you can see a lot of the texture that I put into the rust on the top, and I think that made it really look pretty cool. And on this one here, it's a little bit lighter, but there's still a lot of really cool scratching and pitting, gouging, and things like that. It's got the unique patchwork again, slightly different style patchwork. It's got a beat up logo. You can see this one's actually peeling away, and I actually took the decal and tore it up before I decaled it on, and that's how I got that effect. That's pretty cool. But it's something you see. Again, modeling those different levels of detail like that. It's got a really cool area where it's been re-stenciled there for the COTS block. You got all the unique rust, and again, the top has the really cool patchy rust, which I like to do. And then I'll show you guys the opposite sides of both. Oopsie, sorry about that. I'll show you guys the opposite sides of both of these because they both pretty much have the same kind of weathering, but it just varies from side to side. But I think they both came out honestly really cool. This one was the first one I did, and then when I got that one done, I recently had gone to a hobby shop to get some materials and found one of these. And so I bought it, and that's how I ended up with 2. And I'm definitely glad I have 2 because they both look really cool. Again, you can see the level of detail and just like the rust scratching, the pitting, all that. Really, it speaks better in person, seeing all these, but the video still gives a good idea of just how much detail. Isn't even a simple looking weathering job that I do like that, where you can kind of see all the elements. Now, this one here was the harder one because I had to do a little bit more work. Again, I picked this one at a hobby shop along with this one at the same time and bought these 2 together. And this started out as a really dark, bright orange car. Now, they have a couple of these different Nebraska Co-op cars that they've patched up. But this one is a unique one. It's got the really odd patchwork where the patching was done obviously sometime back when, and it's starting to peel. So the first thing I actually did was I faded the orange way down with some yellow, and then a little bit of white to even out the tint, and that gave me the correct color that I needed. Then I went in and did some airbrush work to grime things up. Then I went in and started doing the unique gray patchwork. I applied it where I needed it, and then I took a Q-tip in some spots and leveled it off. I scrubbed some off, scraped some off, and that's how I got this look here, pretty much. So then I did that, then I was able to go back. I did the unique patching there. I used some trim film decal sheet to do the white patch. Then I followed behind and painted the gray, added the lettering, added the graffiti, and then I went in and applied various levels of washes and grime to tint the side and give me a good grime layer. Applied the more decals, the shady striping, and then went back in and did the fine detail work. So that's the pitting and scratching. Finished up the ends, the bays, all the under bays, all the grime on the ends. If I can try to get a good shot here, you can see the kick up on the end and that patchwork. And then the top, which is nicely grimed up. Lots of signature elements though. These are what really bring these kinds of models to life because you can see all of these different elements in a single model like this. So all this comes together and you get some really cool effects. So I think it's honestly pretty cool. It's one of my favorite hoppers that I've done as of recently was this one. It's really cool. These 2 cars here are Intermountain 4750s, and these are actually ones I did off of cars I got to see in real life. And the unfortunate thing is there's no prototype photos of either one of these cars, so I kind of just had to sort of basically do everything from memory. And the first car I actually caught, I saw, let me see, probably about 4 weeks ago actually. And I had one of these cars, it's just a data only Intermountain. So I just pretty much added my own decals to it and weathered it up. So it's just pretty much the same standard amount of like grime and kick up and everything like that that I do on all the 4750s. I just did my own custom patchwork, rusted up the top. Got all the grime and fresh rust. This one is a salt service car, so it's got all that fresh rust starting there from a fresh load. And then it's got the really unique patchwork there. You can see basically multiple layers of patching that's been done over time. And then what I distinctively remember about the car that I saw, this one, was that it had all these scratches down the side like this. So I actually modeled that on this car. So it's got all the oil streaking and everything like that. I just did some little bit of dry brush work and then some fine tip brush streaking, so you can see it's beating up the safety striping a little bit down the sides, lots of rust pits and everything. And then the underbays are nicely rusted up, so that's pretty sweet, just like that. And again, I think I did pretty good, being the fact that I actually just basically made this from memory. That's pretty good. And then the opposite side, I just kind of guesstimated here, but I just basically repeated what I did for the opposite side for this side. So just a little bit of variation, the weathering just a little bit, the patching is slightly different, things like that, just so it's not all the same. But for the most part, just another in-service general gray older covered hopper I can put in my salt train to kind of give me a little bit more flavor there. Again, it's got all the rust streaking and everything on the bays, all the grime on the walkways, on the trucks, couplers, everything like that. So that's that one. This one is another one I personally get to see. PTLX has tons of these old cars, and I've only made maybe one or two PTLX cars. So this one is just a standard gray lease car. So again, with this one, I just did the wavy panel effect on the sides, got some rust pits and some scratches. I did the safety striping, the fresh patching. I added the tack board there, all the grime on the underbays. I modified the bays by cutting them and shortening them. I added some new decals there. Again, heavy rust on the top. I replaced a couple of hatches to make that a little bit more unique, so that turned out really good. And then I did all the rust streaking down the sides. I got the cover plate for the old CarTrack logo. The new data stenciled there, and then this is one of the older style lease cars, so it has the black ends and then black underbays. So if you look at that, you can see that the difference in the paint. So if you look at that again, you can see all the heavy rust coming down there, and then just the really cool patchwork on that side there. I think that's really cool. It's another interesting car. It's got a lot of flavor to it, if you will, with all the different rust effects. And this one took about maybe a week to finish up. It's just basically doing multiple layers of oil and building it up. But again, it's another really unique looking prototype car that I can put into service, and it looks really cool. So that's the PTLX car. The next one I did was an FMC Chemicals MWCX car. One of the patch ones. And if you remember, for the Pillsbury car over there that I did, I had to get hatches, and it didn't end up working because the hatches that I thought were on this car weren't on this car. So I ended up getting an extra model that I really didn't need, but I decided to keep it anyway and just do a little bit of work and tinkering to it. And it ended up turning out pretty good because I was able to do all the cool effects on one of these. So I just basically beat up the logo by sanding it a little bit, scratching it up, doing a little bit of pitting to make it look a little bit more aged. Got all the rust pitting down the sides, all the heavy rust, some replacements, replacement strips there for the ladder. Sometimes they'll replace those little battens for the end cages. And I just did all the rust streaking, and I used a prototype photo of I think this exact car, maybe just one number over, I think, and I just replicated that. So you can see it's got some really interesting patchwork there. It's got some graffiti, and then on the top I did a lot of detail work in the pitting, so you can see the walkways are starting to pit up, and then there's tons of rust pitting starting at the top, and it's starting to really rust over as time takes over, pretty much. Starts to grime up. And on this car I used Tangent 4750, the fiberglass hatches for this to do that. So that turned out to work really well. They actually do fit really well on the Intermountain cars. And then on the ends there, again, just kick-up spray, all that pretty much normal stuff. Got the end patch there, which is pretty cool. And then on the opposite side, you got all the rust work and everything else. Oopsie. So you can see all that. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think it came out pretty good again. And it's another really cool car I can add. It's another unique road name that I can add to my train. So that's that one. And again, take a look at that logo. That's one of my favorite parts of this. It just looks really cool, especially from a distance. It just blends right into that model, and I think it looks really good. So that's the FMC Chemicals one. And then the Pillsbury car, I'll kind of just quickly blend over. If you guys want to see how I weathered this one, I made a how-to, pretty much just a run-through of how I weathered this a while back. But basically, I just used a combination of acrylic work, a little bit of airbrush work, oils, and things like that built up in layers to get the really cool patchy rust effects on the side. Added all the decal work, the unique patching. I replaced the boards there, the Pillsbury logos, with these placards that are painted over and rusted up. And then I did the white ghost lettering on this, and then the custom INTX patching there. Again, take a note of the really unique rust. It's really patchy. And then it's got all the nice work on the underbays, all that as well. Nicely weathered trucks with the mud splatter and everything else. And then the top has the tangent hatches as well. And then it's got all the fresh rust on the top. So that's one that I was personally very pleased with. It's one I wanted to do on my bucket list for quite some time, and I finally got around to it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think you guys really liked it too. So there's one other look at this car. The next time you see it, it'll probably be in a consist running on a salt train. Got some ACF style grain hoppers, and I got a pellet hopper to show you guys. This one is a really unique 4-bay version, which has the standard bays there. Pretty cool. And this one is patched to AEX. The number is original to the car, but the AEX patch there, that was something I actually had added to complete the car. So it has some really unique side scrapes on the sides, and I just did that with a fine tip brush and a little bit of oil paint, and then went back with a flat brush, something like this, loaded with a little bit of thinner, and you just basically brush it down the side very lightly, not trying to scrub the paint back off, but it gives you those fine streaks that give you that look there. And I think it's a cool way of replicating it. The same technique you'd use for, say, doing rust pits, things like that. On the top, I just did a little bit of grime using mostly powder, and I built it up around the hatch. The hatches I hit up with a little bit of more oil to give them a nice wash. I darkened the bars there, the lock bars. Lots of grime on the walkway, but not too crazy there. On the underbays, just darkened those up a little bit, grimed them up. Again, you can really see the detail in the side scrapes. It's a really unique car. And on the opposite side, it's pretty much kind of the same effect. These scrapes here are a little bit lower on the sill, but they're really starting to rust up. You can see they go all the way down the side of the car. You got some pits. The other interesting thing I did was I darkened up the panel seams. Very common on these cars. You just, again, take a brush similar to this, load it up with powder, scrape most of the powder off on a paper towel, and then you just go down and scrape your brush down the side of the car like this. And this not only gives you this unique signature scratches down the side of the car, but it also highlights these panel seams. That's how I do that. And pretty much again the same kind of weathering as before, just here and there. So that one's pretty cool. And then on the other one, this is just another pellet car. I got this one on eBay pretty cheap. So I just added the graffiti to it based on some photos. Did a light grime wash down the side. It's a little bit heavier up top. Light grime washes on the bottom, on the underbays. Grimed up the trucks, of course, things like that. There's the reporting mark you can see, just a little bit of graffiti, a little hobo tag work here and there. The top is really the cool part. I spent a lot of time doing some grime work where I'd take and apply the paint, brush some of the paint back off, do my Q-tip technique where you just basically take a heavier layer of paint, in this case some light gray, applied that all the way around the hatches to simulate the anti-skid paint, and then I took a Q-tip dipped in alcohol, and I just go in and I blotch up some of that paint, and it creates this really unique effect. I then followed behind with some powders, a little bit of oils here and there to highlight areas around the hatches, grimed those up, grimed up the hatches, pretty much the same on each of these. Some of them are a little rusty, and then the walkway is pretty cool too because you can see all the chipping and everything like that. Some of the areas are starting to rust. So you can even see, you know, at first glance, a plain gray car like this still has a lot of elements of detail that you can do to it. Because I get asked about these all the time, and I got to make a proper video on weathering one of these gray cars, because you can see, it looks like it'd be simple at first, but I still go into a lot of detail with these things. And you can see how it pays off in the end because you get some really good results. So that's that car. The really cool thing about this one as well is the graffiti. I did some interesting graffiti on this side. Hand painted all that. Drew this piece here. I did some other small tags there and there. And it just, again, adds a little bit of interest. It's another unique car. It's got that really cool graffiti on there. So that one looks really great. And again, the top is just killer. It just came out really good. So I'm happy with that. And I'm going to go ahead and put these aside a little bit. Now, real quick, I'm going to blast these out. These are two tank cars that have been in my collection for a couple of years now, and I've really just been needing to get these out of the way because they've been in the way forever. I got a rare Atlas CRGX repaint, white repaint. I just weathered this one up using prototype photos, kind of era post, after kind of 2010 era. That's when I weathered this one a little bit, kind of in that area. So I just darkened the panel seams. I did a little bit of black washed on the side, did a little bit of powder work there around the hatch, grimed up the hatch quite a bit, did some oil work again, just to replicate some of the, some of the corn syrup spillage and all that, collecting the dirt and grime on the car, streaking that down. All the kick up on this underbody, the trucks are nicely grimed up, they're dusted a little bit, added the tape of course, and then the kick up on the ends, which I love to do on the tank cars because it's always the most visible. But you got to get that splatter in there. That's the key thing with the tank cars, because a lot of these tank cars have that. I mean, all rail cars have it to an extent, but I just did that with a little bit of oil and a liner brush. And then on the opposite side here, it's pretty much the same. So this is just a simple, moderately weathered car, but it does a good job showing all the more modern effects and all the grime that you see on these more modern cars. And again, I added the Katy couplers to it because the Atlas couplers that it came with suck, so I replaced those. So that's the corn syrup car. Now this one is an Athearn Genesis, and I just again grind this one up the same way. Put the kick up and the safety tape on there. On the ends you can see it's really starting to work up the end of the car. It's just splattered to hell, which looks pretty cool. It's not too bad yet. A lot of these are starting to get real beat up, but got this one kind of clean. You see the corrosion is just starting at the top there. You got a lot of splatter from the acid, and just little bits of highlight here and there. Nicely grimed up wheels and trucks, couplers, coupler box, all that good stuff there. And then the kick up on the end, which you can see, again has all that real nice wheel splatter. Some really fantastic effects there. And it's not that hard to do, but you get some really cool effects doing that. Alright, so that's the two tank cars. Really cool models there. I just gotta kind of put them away. I just am running out of room for these things. I got too many damn trains, so I gotta go into the store here and kind of make some more room for them. But that's why they're still out. I gotta make room for them, and then I can put them away and keep them from getting dust. So these last two covered hoppers I'm going to show. Well, actually the last three. I got this one here. This is a TRLX. This is a rare Atlas 3-bay, and I just basically weathered this one from prototype photos. So it's a chemical car. So I just did a light grime wash down the side, and then I did a white chalky grime tone down the side using a little bit of oil paint. I painted the graffiti and then weathered that in with the car. So it's got some really cool graffiti, as you can see, that are replicated. And then I just weathered up the underbays, weathered up the trucks. Excuse me, I'm very tired. Excuse me. But I think it came out pretty good. You can see the grime work on the top there. Lots of heavy grime around the hatches there. And then on the other side, you know, pretty clean. Pretty simple. Really the most work there was just building up that chalky wash down the side. And again, that's just a little bit of titanium white oil paint. That's how I did that. So it not only tones down the bright color of the car, but it gives it that nice chalky color that you see on a lot of these cars. And it's pretty cool. So there's the trucks again, and then I replaced the couplers as well. But again, the cool part is the graffiti. Everyone obviously loves graffiti. And I took some time doing that, hand painting that off some prototype photos, and I think that came out pretty good. It's not hard, it just takes time. It's really the thing about graffiti is it's just a kind of a multi-layering process. So, but it definitely adds interest to these models for sure. So that's that one. This next one here is an NOKL, and this one came out pretty good. It's another rare Atlas, so I changed the couplers around. This one has a lot more heavily rusted features. It has the entire top area grimed up, rusted up the hatches, rusted up around the walkway there. This is a salt car, so it just rusted up absolutely like crazy. You can see how bad the actual rust is. So I added all that, and I just basically layered it, right? I just basically put layers of this oil paint on at a time until it was done, and then completed that, and it ended up turning out pretty good, as you can see. I'm honestly pretty happy with it. You got a lot of rust pitting, a lot of gouges down the side, and some really unique things there. So on this opposite side it has a little bit of graffiti, and you can see all of that. Really, again, it's just layering, because you can't just do this kind of work all at once. So what you focus on is you build up a wash first to get the main coverage of the car, to tint the paint a little bit, so to speak. Then you do your heavy buildup at the top. Then you do your rust streaking down from the walkway supports, because those are the most pronounced rust streaks. They're the heaviest. Then you go back in, do the finer rust streaks one at a time. You blend it out a little bit with washes. Then you go back in, let all that dry, and then you add all of your rust pits. Right? So you do all the rust pitting, and you just layer it one little bit at a time, and that's the key to do heavy rust cars like this. But it's definitely a lot more work compared to something like this. This is a lot of work, and I actually sold this one. I was going to keep it, but I kind of in a point in time where I just have too many cars, and I really got to decide now which models stay, which models go. And in this case, I like this one, but I just don't have room for it, and it's got to get canned, basically. So I've already gotten a buyer for it. Unfortunately, it's going to be going out the door tomorrow, but at least you guys get to see it here. I'm already missing it, damn it. Oh well, I can't be too attached to these things. You know, I like them too much, and then I have to let them go. Anyways, there's the NOK car, or the NOKL car, I should say. And this last one, SCYX. This is a Central Soya, I believe, possibly. I think these are first Union Rail too. But it's one of the pressurized cars. These are the more modern version. I got this one on eBay really cheap, literally a couple bucks. I bought it, and it was from a guy in Ohio, so I got it shipped pretty cheap too. Yeah, so I just pretty much darkened the panel seams, did all that, did the light grime on the top. You can see it's really built up pretty cool. I went back in, and then I actually sprayed some dull coat on this, and that gave me this really cool pitting effect at the top. It's kind of hard to see. If I zoom in there, you can kind of see that paint where it almost looks like it's been baked on in a way. So that's a really unique thing, and they just did that with dull coat again, and it's another really unique feature. I'm always trying to find different techniques and different ways of doing these things. You know, always trying to find different layers of texture. So I just grimed up the sides, did a little bit of graffiti work, grimed up the underbays, added the weathering to the trucks and the wheels, and then I basically sealed it all in because it's powder work to protect it. And then on this side has a graffiti, another really cool graffiti piece, so I just copied that from photos, painted that on there. Other than that, the weathering was pretty much the same, and that's how I wrapped up this one. So it's another plain gray average car that I can throw in, but it has the interest, it has graffiti on it, so it adds some interest to a regular boring looking manifest train. So that's that one. So that's pretty much all the covered hoppers and the two tank cars that I got done. So these are some cars I've wanted to do for many years. I finally got a pack of these. These are the Maintenance of Way Walthers ballast cars in the gray scheme. I actually bought these from France, and I got them pretty quick. I wanted to do some fictional first Union Rail ballast cars with these, and I wanted to just kind of dirty them up, grime them, pit them up. Nothing crazy, but of course, being me, I ended up making them a little bit more of a project. I ended up doing quite a bit of work to these. So you can see I have a set of 3 of these here, and then I actually recently got a 4th one there, but it's still in the works. I'm still getting around to doing some other weathering work. But basically, with all of these, the signature is the unique patchwork. I did a lot of grime, dust work to the underbays, to the trucks, because with ballast cars these usually get very dusty. There's usually a lot of chalky white grime, especially concentrated on those discharge gates there. You can see there's a lot of scratching too, and I just replicated all that, grimed up the trucks and wheels. I added some grime, rust, new couplers. You got heavy kick up on the end, tons of rust spots, pitting, scratching, whole 9 yards there. I added the grab irons to all these, and I also did the, again, rust pitting. You can see all the fine rust pits. I did some patchwork there, changed some data, added data, did the unique decal patchwork there, added the safety striping, that kind of thing. You can see that there's a lot of really cool effects in each one of these. The interiors are really dirty. You can see all the effects in there. That's basically built up with oils, and then I go back in, add powders to enhance all that, and you get that really cool effect just like that. So you can see I did that with that one. The interior of this one, you can see it has all that, all the grease, grime splatter in there, which is pretty cool. And then on this side, pretty much the same thing, but really just the amount of detail I put into each one of these is really cool, and they turned out really well. And they're all slightly different to an extent. So you're going to see this one has the black patch decal work there on that one. Now this one is the white patch version. So you can see I did, again, pretty much the same amount of work. It's got a little bit of variation, but pretty much the same. Just a lot of rust kind of eating away at the sides, because these cars get very, very rusty. And you can see all the dust. The interiors are nicely weathered up. There's a big hair in that one, that's annoying. All the grime work in the interior. Of course, all the stuff on this side as well. You can really see all that rust. It's really, really astounding. And then the third one here is a little bit more unique. It has some graffiti and a little bit more unique patchwork. I just replicated that again, did some primer patches for safety striping, patched all that up. You get all the really cool fine tags, hand-painted graffiti, and then the patchwork was changed around slightly. You can see it's a stencil style, and then they re-stenciled the data there, and then just some other really unique features there. But this one came out pretty cool as well. I don't really have a favorite out of any of these. I think they all equally look cool as shit. But that was a project I've been working on for the last month. That was the big one. You can see this side has, again, some unique graffiti, unique patchwork there. I really like them, though. I really like the rust spots. It's definitely a lot of work to do all that, but it ends up turning out really good because you spend the time, you build up everything in layers, and it usually turns out really well like this. So I'm really happy with all three of these cars. Of course, I'll operate them on the model railroad. I'll load them with some ballast later on. I might actually make permanent loads for them, but I'm not sure. I kind of like the look of them also being empty, so we'll see how that plays out. So that's all three of them there. And again, I do have a fourth. I just got to finish it up, and then I'll have all these done, and I might make some more later. I don't know. If I run into another 3-pack, I might consider getting it and making some more. So we'll see what happens there. But anyways, that's going to pretty much wrap this video up. That gets you guys up to date where I am. Obviously, everything changes very quickly. I'm always selling, buying stuff, getting rid of things, going through. So you know what I mean? Things always are changing, so I'll definitely keep you guys posted on what else I'm working on. I'm going to have some more cars here down the road. Of course, this one will be done. I'll have some locomotives too, so you guys will see what I'm working on later on. So thank you for watching for now, getting up to date with me here. Stay tuned for more content. Subscribe here on YouTube for more if you're new, and hopefully you like this video. So thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.